So, I hope you got your thinking caps on because I have some questions. What was the focus of the presentation last night? What was the focus? I'm sorry? Exactly. Come on up and get yourself a prize there. What is the number one important part of communication? Now, this is a true or false. Excuse me, let me go back and rephrase that. What is the number one important part of communication? Is it is the answer to listen true or false? There, we got it right. Okay, the answer is false. Oh no, I went and gave it away. What do we do? No, go ahead. No? You were brave enough to be wrong. Go get yourself something. Jump up. Okay. What did the 3-year-old boys say when they saw the pickle? I think it was Maria. And have to look at it all here, make sure I got that. Yep, the answer was, I want that. Men are kind of like that, aren't they? Sometimes. Okay, thank you. Barbara?
Well, good evening, everybody. Oh, dear. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. That's it. We're getting there. Well, we're talking about a glitch in the system, the biology of survival, and this is really about what happens to us when we've had difficult things happen to us, when we get that amygdala hijack that we've talked about. Remember how that happens? It's that fight or flight being triggered, feeling like, oh, something is really wrong, we feel under threat. And so we're going to talk about that because there's some very interesting research that gives us some ideas about why we react the way we do and what to do about it, and how to understand children, particularly who have had that. It also ties into things that we can't get over and how that traumatizes us. So I want to spend a little bit of time on that because these are important not only for our spirituality, but for our health. Now, we've talked about this stress response and what happens when we get a trigger. That our pituitary gland sends a message to our adrenal glands right over our kidneys, and it's a shock, and our blood gets a little thicker, and we get tunnel vision, and we might not hear as well. We get throbbing in our ears, our blood pressure goes up, our heart rate goes up, our heart races a little bit sometimes. And when these things happen, we know that we're being triggered and we're scared, we're having some real difficulty. This is the amygdala hijack, the amygdala being a little tiny bump of an organ inside of our brain that connects our emotions with things that happen. So that amygdala hijack, you can see there, it starts to make us feel very, very triggered, very anxious. I remember being called to the principal's office one time, and as soon as they said, "You're wanted in the principal's office," my stomach went into a ball because I thought, what did I do wrong? Oh no, watch out. And I started to feel triggered. And this is what was happening in my brain at that time. Our prefrontal cortex, which is this front part of our brain, is what governs the way we, our clinical judgment about things. And so when that's threatened, we do things that are unpredictable, but in the moment, they seem like the only thing we can see to do. So that's why panicked people and people with a very anxious brain can't always make great decisions, because the frontal part of our brain that governs our behavior, it's called our executive system of our brain, kind of goes on vacation for a moment while we're very, very upset. Just to review, we have a number of things that happen in our bodies. All of our body systems react to stress or to being triggered. And we've already talked about that. It's anywhere from feeling sick, feeling nauseated. It's anywhere from our skin breakouts, having difficulty managing our blood sugar, having real difficulty getting a good breath of air, feeling like we're going to have a heart attack, feeling a little panicky. It also has reaches all the way to our reproductive system. It also has something to do with headaches, nausea, indigestion. People can get diarrhea and constipation, all from nerves or feeling very anxious, where you might not have a parasite, you might not have gotten food poisoning, but boy, oh boy, it's not a good time. And that can happen because our body is going faster and because we feel under threat. I want to talk first of all about something called adverse childhood events. Have any of you heard of those? Adverse childhood experiences were coined by Felitti, who did a study at Kaiser Permanente hospitals in California of thousands and thousands of patients. And they followed these patients, looked in their charts over a period of time, and they compared their intake information about, have you experienced this particular life experience or that experience, and then tracked that and matched it to all of the life symptoms that they had thereafter. And these were the kinds of things that they were looking at. Have you ever experienced abuse of any kind, neglect, household dysfunction? Did someone in your house go to jail? Is someone using a substance? Is someone beating up your mother or your father? So as these, have you experienced divorce? You know, the vast number of people have at least one, we call them ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. The vast majority of people have at least one, because we live in a sinful world, don't we? We can't fully escape, and we don't get to choose the kinds of things that we're exposed to, do we? They just, there they are. We don't ask the family we're born into. We don't ask the race we are. We don't ask the jobs that our parents have. We just show up and we take on whatever is there. And we learn to live with whatever we have. There have been some other ACEs that have been added to this list as well. And I think this comes from the Philadelphia group. There's a group in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia that have added, which are much more contextual, I think. And those are things like racism, things like growing up in a bad neighborhood where you're always looking over your back and you're afraid all the time. Poverty is another big one. Where am I going to get my next meal? That food insecurity. Other things are immigrating to this country or being a refugee. Those can be incredible stressors and throw the whole family into pandemonium and can be very stressful. And so we have to respect people who have the strength to go through these things, but also realize that it costs something when people do go through these things. What they found by comparing the outcomes with what people experienced in their young years were tremendous uptick in all kinds of physical ailments. So much so that it shocked the whole population of health providers. So that what we know is that heart disease, cancer, stroke, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, diabetes, death, asthma, abnormal carbohydrate metabolism, which means people have a hard time getting rid of a lot of weight around the middle. Development of central body fat, higher lipid accumulation in their arteries, acceleration of chronic diseases of aging, and allostatic overload. Do you remember what allostasis is that we talked about before? Let me remind you, allostasis is that dance that our body does with our internal systems to manage the stress on the outside. So when we say someone has a very high allostatic load, they're coping with a lot, and their body has to make up for that somehow. So knowing that trauma affects people in this way, isn't that sobering? And what we find is that a lot of children who grow up with several of these ACEs, 4 or more, are significantly more likely to have symptoms that look like ADHD, symptoms that are like depression. They early on have sexual relationships, a lot of teen pregnancies. They smoke a lot more. They take drugs a lot earlier and a lot more. This is not because they're bad. This is because it's a self-soothing behavior. Now, self-soothing, we talked in the first day about taking care of ourselves and how to soothe ourselves by putting our hands on our chest and box breathing and getting the jitters out, right? Well, kids don't know how to do that innately. And you've got kids trying to feel better in any way they can, and they might pick up smoking. We know that anxiety and smoking are highly correlated. If you feel a little awkward, you want to have something in your hands so that you can go outside and have a cigarette. And of course, that adds to that allostatic load, but it also adds to any possible illness that you could end up with. Now, Nadine Burke-Harris, I've given you some really excellent resources on the end of your handout by her. She has an entire website. She's written a wonderful book called The Deepest Well, and she has a TED Talk that I also reference in the handout. But she said this.